The Woman's Prize is the one thing in literature that I know is going to throw out 5-star read after 5-star read. I absolutely love reading The Woman's Prize. Last year I read 5-star reads, and I'm hoping to increase that number this year. And there are some wonderful books, and some books that really interest me that are eligible this year. I thought it'd be fun to have a bit of a discussion about what might be on the long list and then to predict the long list. What I thought would be good is to just put some book covers up next to me of books that I don't think will make it onto the long list, but that will be considered by the judges and that I think are still worth checking out, because you would have thought that 16 books was enough books to narrow it down, but no, that's just not how it works. Now, to be eligible for the Women's Prize, you need to be published in the UK between the 1st of April 2022 and the 31st of March 2023, which means that when the long list is announced on the 7th of March, there is a chance that at least one of the books will not yet be published. Now, there are a few really big name authors with books eligible this year, including 5 previous winners. Maggie O'Farrell won in 2020 with Hamnet, and she's eligible with her historical fiction, The Marriage Portrait. Camilla Shamsi won in 2018 with Homefire, and she's eligible with her novel Best of Friends. Ali Smith won in 2015. She's got Companion Piece. A.M. Holmes won in 2013, and it's taken her almost 9 years to write her novel, The Unfolding. And Barbara Kingsolver won in 2010. Her retelling of David Copperfield, Demon Copperhead, is eligible as well. I'm only actually going to predict one of those 5 books will be long-listed. But I've read all of them, and I wouldn't be too surprised if all 5 of them made the long list. And I think that just underlines just how strong this year's field is. There's some books that have got some real hype about them. Books that you're probably aware of, and I'm not going to include them on my list because I've just got to be ruthless. Nightcrawling by Layla Motley was longlisted for the Booker Prize, and she was the youngest author ever to be longlisted. And I'm telling you that this is a fantastic novel, but I've had to cut it. I also really liked Horse by Geraldine Brooks. Trespassing by Louise Kennedy is a love story set during the Troubles, and this is the sort of books that the judges will love. Both those 2 books gone. Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin, Livonia by Atessa Moshfegh, The Book of Goose by Yi Yun Lee, Memphis by Tara M. Stringfellow, Woman Eating by Claire Coda, American Fever by Durs E. Aziz Ahmed, Shrines of Gaiety by Kate Atkinson, The Hero of This Book by Elizabeth McCracken, True Biz, Sarah Novak, The Rabbit Hutch, Tess Guntley, Briefly a Delicious Life, Nell Stevens, The Candy House, Jennifer Egan. At certain points we touch, Lauren John Joseph, Lucy by the Sea, Elizabeth Strout, Sea of Tranquility by Emily St. John Mandel, The Whalebone Theatre by Joanna Quinn, The Birdcatcher by Gail Jones, Babel by R.F. Kwong, and Thrust by Lydia Yankovic. These are just some of the incredible books that I had to cut from my list in order to get it down to 16. And you can see that's a strong list of books there. It's time to get on with the predictions. And I have 4 books that I think will make the long list, but that I've not actually included on my prediction. And the reason is I've just spoken about them at end. I think that these 4 books are absolutely fantastic, but you can look at any one of a number of my recent videos. I've got book reviews out on all of these books. They're brilliant books. They're 5-star reads. They're great, but I just don't want to talk about them anymore. I want to talk about new books. I said I was only going to put one previous winner on the list, and that's Maggie O'Farrell's The Marriage Portrait, a historical fiction about Lucrezia de Medici, a woman who was dead at 16 and believed to be murdered by her husband in Renaissance Italy. If an Egyptian Cannot Speak English by Noor Naga, a Egyptian-Canadian novel about a woman who moves from North America to Egypt and falls in love with a recovering junkie. Milk Teeth by Jessica Andrews, just some of the most exquisite prose you will ever get. And Diana Reid's Love and Virtue, a novel about a girl who gets raped on campus and how her best friend and her deal with it and how that causes friction in their friendship. Let's get on with my long list prediction. There are 3 books I've already read that I've put on this long list. So I'm going to start with them, and I'm going to start with People Person by Candace Carthy Williams. Candace Carthy Williams wrote Queenie a couple of years ago, and this is her sophomore novel. This is her follow-up novel. It's about 5 siblings who only share a dad, not a mum. Specifically, it's about Dimple and her relationship with a rather problematic boy and how she turns to her siblings for support, even though they weren't raised together and they don't really know each other. The relationship that Dimple has with this man really does bring the siblings together. There's obviously themes of love and family in there. It's a very feminist novel. It talks about being black. There are people who have spent time in jail. Shame of people who have gone to jail. There is this discussion of privilege. There is having to work and having to not work and wanting to be a social influencer. Candace Carthy Williams just keeps shoving themes into this novel, and she's got such a strong storyline that it all holds together, it all works. Ultimately, this is what the Woman's Prize does. It finds these books that just have excellent storytelling, and then the themes just sort of work with the story, and it just creates this wonderful all-round book that can be enjoyed on multiple different levels. The Immortal King by Vahini Vara. This is a dystopian set in the not too distant future. It follows King, who is the former CEO of the world, and he's now a very old man, and his daughter, and he tries to give his daughter something called a clarinet, and that enables her to see his memories. He was a Dalit Indian person who worked his way up to CEO of the world. The point of a good dystopian is to critique the society that we're living in, and this book obviously does that fantastically. It was such a rich conversation about this. It really kept me engaged to the end. Often you find dystopians, they build the world and you're just like, oh, well, you can kind of stop now. That's the point of reading this. The storyline, what's that? This book, I could have read twice as much and had it all be world building, and I was so intrigued. Ginger and Me by Alyssa Sove is a novel set in Glasgow. It follows 3 women, Wendy, Ginger, and Diana. Wendy has lost her parents. She's an aspiring young writer, but she doesn't really understand the world around her. She is painfully naive and reads as quite neurodiverse. She has help from the city council in order to function. And we know at the start of this book that something really bad has happened. We know that she is going to jail, but we don't know why. Ginger is 15. She meets Wendy, who is 4 years her senior, and they become best friends. Ginger is everything Wendy isn't, and Wendy is everything that Ginger isn't. Wendy has her life together. Ginger does not. Where Wendy is naive, Ginger is street smart. And Ginger would be Wendy's best friend if it wasn't for Diana, and local author, who Wendy has not met in real life, but she's liked a few of her tweets. Wendy thinks she understands everything about the world and gives you a hilarious commentary on people around her, which is really her just not quite getting things. This is quite a dark comedy in places, but it's a really sad character portrait as well. It's about people who don't fit in, people who are different, about trying to understand what people bring to other people, like what is a person's worth and how valuable people are even if they don't fit in. It's got a real Eleanor Oliphant sort of feel to it, but it's quite dark. Not that Eleanor Oliphant wasn't a dark book either, but there's levels of dark. Kaikeyi by Vashniri Patel is a historical fiction, or it's a retelling of a certain section of the Ramayana. We've seen Madeline Miller win with a retelling of a Greek bit of mythology, so why can't we see somebody win with a retelling of an Indian bit of mythology? and make it feminist. This is the sort of stuff that is very popular if it's done well, and this is getting lots of good reviews. The Pharaoh, Noelle Serpell, a Zambian novel about a brother and a sister. Cassandra is 12 when Wayne, who is 7, dies. But Wayne's body is never recovered, and Cassandra keeps seeing Wayne throughout her life. He is everywhere. She cannot escape him. And then one day, as an adult, she meets a young man called Wayne. As Cassandra grows up, her father leaves the family to marry another woman and start another family. The mother copes by starting a charity for lost children. This is a novel about grief and mourning, and if you've been here for more than 5 seconds, you'll know that that's my catnip. The Nursery by Sylvia Mola. That cover, I was looking at that cover earlier today and I'm like, what is it? If only it was a little bit less blurred. And then it hit me. And that is the thing that drew me to this book more than anything else. I didn't know what it was. I swear I didn't know what it was. And what is this book about? Well, it's about nursing. It's about becoming a mother. It's about a woman's dissatisfaction with becoming a new mum. About the depression and the isolation that you experience, feeling trapped. I really like that the protagonist in this is an introverted character rather than an extroverted character, because as somebody who is on the introverted side of things, I don't really like to go and talk to people. But then when I feel completely isolated, it's horrible. Even though I don't really crave a lot of people contact, I still need people contact. Wild Geese by Sula Emanuel doesn't come out until the 30th of March, meaning it'll be one of those really frustrating books to track down if it does make it to the long list. Phoebe Ford is an Irish trans girl living in Scandinavia when she unexpectedly runs into her first and only girlfriend. And this brings up memories that she was trying to leave behind. As somebody is trying to create a new identity, they're sort of brought back to the old identity, which is quite cool because we've got this immigrant thing, but also we've got this trans thing. Now, that's not the end of this book. The other thing that's going on that really drew me to this book is that we have this dissatisfaction with life. How many of us watching this, viewing this, talking about books can understand this? Overeducated and underpaid. Doesn't that sum up a large section of society? Doesn't that, that really to me points out a cause of some of the dissatisfaction that we have with the world at the moment? Because I just assume that anybody who reads books is dissatisfied with the way that the world is run at the moment, because you can interpret things and understand facts. This is the intersection of identity, of immigration, of transness, and of dissatisfaction with the world. How is that not a novel that you want to read? I'm Sorry You Feel That Way by Rebecca Waite. This won the Guardian Book of the Year, which is weird because I haven't seen anybody on BookTube talk about it. BookTube are a little bit too insular. Maybe we need to look at some other books. Anyway, this is about sibling dynamics and intergenerational trauma along with mental health. It's just the sort of thing that if it's well done, you know it's going to be well done. And it won the Guardian's Book of the Year. I have no idea what the Guardian's Book of the Year is like on track record, but I'm going to say that that's a good sign. Wade in the Water by Naomi Nkrumah. This is set in the late 1800s in Missouri and involves 2 women having an unlikely friendship, a young black woman and a older white wealthy woman. It's only been out for about a week and there hasn't been a lot of reviews on it, but it's just one of these books, a debut novel, and if it's done well, I mean, that's the thing. I'm sort of read a lot of these books and gone, if that's done good, that could be really good. A Spell of Good Things by Ayobami Adebayo. A Nigerian novel, Ayobami Adebayo. This is her second novel. Her first novel was really nice and very Nigerian about marriage and children. But this is about class, and this is about gender and class at the same time. A wealthy woman and a poor man, and the unlikely friendship that they form and how their lives are interlinked. This has got potential written all over it. I'm getting sick of saying that already, but all of these books have great potential. But Ayobami Adebayo has got a track record. Well, she's written one good book, so we know she can do it, is what I'm saying. Ma'am by Jessica George. Maddie's mother travels around the world to Ghana and back quite a lot. Maddie's father has Parkinson's disease, and Maddie is a self-described late bloomer. This book is described as both poignant and humorous, which are two things I love together in a book. I love funny sad. Funny sad is something I really enjoy. Body Grammar by Jules Oman. Set in the modelling world, it follows the friendship between two women. One of them with the killer androgynous looks that makes her perfect for the modelling world, but she's not interested in that. What she's interested in is photographing her friend, who there may be a bit of romance involved with. We have a queer love story, but then we also have tragedy that completely changes this dynamics. So we've got modelling, we've got couture, we've got lesbians, and we've got grief. I mean, this is a good recipe. This is making me feel uncomfortable about how often I talk about horrible stuff with glee. I'm not a good person deep down in my soul. Nothing Special by Nicole Flattery, an Irish novel set in New York about a girl who drops out of high school and starts to work for Andy Warhol. The year is 1966, just so that makes sense, yeah? This is exploring a woman's or a girl's growth into womanhood, but it's also exploring friendship, and it says it's funny and for fans of Atessa Moshfegh. And Sally Rooney reviewed it, called it bold, astonishingly funny, and irreverent. So, yeah. Bad Cree by Jessica Johns. A woman wakes up from a dream with 7 crow's heads in her hand. She was dreaming of fighting crows in the snow. It's a bit supernatural and weird, obviously. Bit horror themed. She keeps having this dream about the crows and the untimely death of her sister. She goes back to her family to grieve the death of her sister, and I think this looks quite supernatural. It's got horror aspects, there's a mystery, and it's a book about grief and being Indigenous. It's such a weird blending. It feels like it might be like Indigio-futurism. Is that a thing? Wandering Souls by Cecil Pin. This is a book about 3 Vietnamese siblings who seek refuge in the UK in the wake of the Vietnam War after the last American troops leave. And they go from civil war to like this horrible anti-immigrant sentiment. The way we treat refugees in the Western world is utterly deplorable. Something that just makes me so angry with so many governments, not least my own terrible government, and bipartisanly terrible as well, in not just in Australia, but I'm sure all over the world. And to humanize that in a book is powerful, and these are the books that we need at the moment. We need to have people seeing refugees and seeing that they're coming from civil war. River Sing Me Home, Eleanor Shearer, a Caribbean story about a mother who searches for her children after slavery comes to an end. I don't need to say anything else. You want to read that book now, don't you? You do if you're me, anyway. That's all I needed to know. Big Swiss, Jen Began. Greta spends her days transcribing for a sex therapist, and she gets obsessed with one of their customers, which she calls Big Swiss, on account of she's tall and she's from Switzerland. She's also stoic and deals with things in a very different way to Greta. While they both have a dark history, Big Swiss is completely unattached from her trauma, wherewith for Greta it is very much a part of her. Then one day she recognizes her voice at a local park, and they meet, and they're attracted to each other. Now, that is enough to get me interested in the book, but there is one little thing in the blurb of this book that for some reason just kept me coming back to it, and that is Greta lives with her friend Sabine in an ancient Dutch farmhouse in Hudson, New York. The house, built in 1737, is unrenovated, uninsulated, and full of bees. I don't know why the detail about the bees really interests me, but it does. Not only can I not count to 16, but I forgot Eleanor Catton's book, Burnham Wood, Guerrilla Gardening Meets Capitalism. What more do you need to know? She won a Booker Prize. I'm gonna give you a long list of 22 books apparently, because that's how we roll on this channel. Yeah, you got extra value with my prediction. Which one of these books do you want to know more about? If you're interested in the Woman's Prize, why not subscribe to this channel, because I will be following it, because I really just love that prize. It's brilliant. Bye bye.